Sangeet Singh Som has now claimed that SRK has no right to continue living in India. For the unversed, the KKR franchise is owned by SRK, actor Juhi Chawla and her husband Jay Mehta. To quote Sangeet Som, anti-India slogans are raised in Bangladesh. Hindus are being persecuted, women and girls being raped, their homes are being burned, and anti-India slogans are being chanted there. The Prime Minister is abused, but traitors like Shah Rukh are helping them by spending 9 crores. They have no right to live in this country. So much so, the BJP leader has even threatened Rahman with dire consequences, saying if he arrives in India, he will not be allowed to even step out of the airport. While Shiv Sena UBT has also echoed similar sentiments, Congress and AIMIM have a different take. So much so, the Congress has questioned Home Minister Amit Shah's son Jay Shah and the BCCI allowing the overseas player, and AIMIM has in fact rhetorically questioned how does one's support matter in the field of cricket. Moot question being, is it fair to target Shah Rukh Khan alone when the decision lies in the hands of the government authorities? And if the violence against Hindus and minorities in Bangladesh is an issue that directly impacts India, then why isn't there a BCCI directive yet prohibiting India playing against Bangladesh or stopping its players from playing in the league? Bringing us back to the question on nationalism and identity. In a country where cricket is religion and linked with national pride, can the sport be segregated from geopolitical tensions and security concerns?
आप देखिए कि जिस तरीके से बांग्लादेश में हिंदुओं के साथ अत्याचार हो रहा है, जिस तरीके से वहाँ हिंदुओं की बहन बेटियों के साथ बलात्कार हो रहा है, वहाँ जलाया जा रहा है, जिंदे जलाया जा रहा है, नंगे कर करके पीट के उन्हें जिंदे जलाया जा रहा है, प्रतिष्ठान लूटे जा रहे हैं। उस स्थिति में हमें वहाँ के लोगों का बायकॉट करने के बजाय शाहरुख खान जैसे गद्दार वहाँ के खिलाड़ियों को खरीदने का काम कर रहे हैं।
तो मैं तो सबसे पहले पलटकर ये पूछना चाहती हूँ कि बांग्लादेशियों को उस पूल में किसने डाला? बीसीसीआई और आईसीसी से ये सवाल है। गृह मंत्री जी के बेटे जय शाह जी जवाब दें कि जहां से आईपीएल के खिलाड़ियों की खरीद फरोख्त होती है, उस पूल में उस जो एक झुंड होता है जिससे खरीदा जाता है, आईपीएल के खिलाड़ियों का ऑक्शन होता है, उस पूल में उनको किसने डाला?
All right, let me introduce my esteemed guests today. I'm joined in by Atul Vasan, who's a former Indian cricketer, Rashmi Samant, who's an activist, also joined in by Akhil Swami, a political analyst. Many thanks to you all for joining in. Mr. Vasan, if I could come to you first. The big question right now that everybody is asking, can KKR even cancel Rahman's contract, that too based on non-sporting reasons? Yes, they had the biggest purse. They've made Rahman the most expensive Bangladeshi player in IPL history. There were several others who were not even hired. But the big question being, can non-sporting reasons be used against Rahman to cancel the contract?
First of all, I think it's irrelevant what amount of money he was supposed to get. And I'm sure, of course, the contract can be cancelled because everything supersedes what is happening in the current reality world. I think, everybody's jumped onto the wagon and blaming KKR and Shah Rukh Khan because, it's a low-hanging fruit. But I think it's because BCCI allowed the Bangladeshi players to be in the auction pool. And, and Shah Rukh Khan was not even there. It's the team cricketing management who chose the Bangladeshi player. So I think once this situation is being monitored, if it goes the same way, obviously, the call will be taken. And I think it is going to be like a tokenism if we just look at this matter and, we take out our angst against Bangladesh, because there are so many other things the government is also watching and they are doing. And I think this is just like a, just one example. And I think if this is even if he's removed, it is not going to fix the problems on the field. And I think, I think it is wrong to just blame KKR and Shah Rukh Khan for this. And I think going forward, there's few weeks to go still for IPL. And I'm sure they will take a very pragmatic decision. And I think it's nothing that he is going to sue, because, country comes before cricket and everything.
Rashmi, would you like to weigh in on that? Why only target SRK out here? That too when he's just a co-owner in KKR, when you are saying he was not even present during the auction. But more importantly, you also have Jay Mehta and his wife Juhi Chawla, a very good friend to Shah Rukh Khan. Then why only question or target SRK and his brand of nationalism?
Well, I think there's been a little bit of precedence with the brand of movies and the underlying narratives in the movies that Shah Rukh Khan's acted in the recent past, especially Pathan, where many believed that the ISI was shown as cooperative and in slightly positive overtones, which has not sat well with some parts of the Indian public. So I think there is a little bit of precedence when it comes to these things, and the recent worsening of ties between Bangladesh and India then also contributes to the accusations which are coming. So I think celebrities, especially people with that kind of impact on the public and the social psyche, need to be extremely careful about the signals that their decisions send. So it is not equivalent to common people or people with lesser social capital taking decisions. So when people with a lot of social capital even take small decisions, these have ramifications. So I think SRK needs to be careful, and I think the best course of action would be to undo and cancel the contract at the current moment.
Akhil Swami, do you think that there is also a certain typecasting that's going with the actor's overall brand image when it comes to his own political leanings? Though many have also been observing how he's toned down his political leanings, but there's a bit of a history over here that accompanies the actor. Remember when IPL had banned Pakistan shortly after the Mumbai terror attacks in 2010, he had made some very controversial remarks about how he doesn't believe that Pakistan players should be barred from playing in the IPL. Do you think that kind of history that accompanies his own political views on Pakistani players is now also being linked with his views on, say, hiring Rahman for KKR?
See, there is a कहावत in Hindi, धोबी पे बस नहीं चला गधे के कान उमेट दिए. See, the BCCI and ICC allows India to play cricket with Pakistan. Sheikh Hasina, the ex-Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who is accused in the various cases, the decision has been taken by the courts of Bangladesh, is given shelter in India. The Jai Shankar, the External Affairs Minister, goes to Bangladesh, shakes hands with the ambassadors of Pakistan and Bangladesh, and the poor fellow who has been allowed by BCCI and ICC, Mr. Jai Shah, son of Mr. The kahavat is very right in this particular case. धोबी पे बस नहीं चला गधे के कान उमेट.
But don't you think that the analogy of bringing in Sheikh Hasina right now is a little going a tad bit too far? India is cooperating as far as the extradition treaty is concerned. This is somebody who's a former prime minister of a
Nobody
country
in the world has
who
allowed
was on
Sheikh
very
Hasina.
good terms with the country.
Sheikh
So
Hasina is a Rohingya. She is a Rohingya. She is a Bangladeshi infiltrator, allowed by government of India.
I think I'd quickly like to bring in Rashmi Samant on that one. Rashmi Samant, Sheikh Hasina's reference is being brought in, but I'm sure we will agree that to compare India-Bangladesh bilateral relations with that of India-Pakistan is going to be unfair right now. We still have diplomacy going. And as Mr. Swami also highlighted, the External Affairs Minister was very much in Bangladesh. Yet, what are your thoughts, Rashmi?
Well, I think it's extremely problematic to, paint Sheikh Hasina a certain way right now. The conditions under which she fled Bangladesh, I mean, the videos are still available. If she had stayed back, she would have been lynched. And when she was around, the sort of atrocities that happened with minorities were still under control. There was still accountability. The perpetrators were still prosecuted. There was some sense of accountability. And I think I don't understand what is going on to call her traitor to this extent, and that she deserves what's coming her way. I think it's extremely problematic. I don't think that a stateswoman who has, led Bangladesh through extremely troubling times and, has helped its economy deserves that sort of treatment. And adding to that, I agree with you, Akanksha. It's what's got to do with the past. It's got to do with what Shah Rukh has said in the past about keeping, politics and cricket separate, especially when the question of banning Pakistani players was brought up post the Mumbai terror attack. See, there's a pattern here with SRK. So I think he really needs to be on the front foot when it comes to the signals, the kind of signals he's sending with the choices he's making for his cricket team, with the kind of scripts that he's accepting for his movies, and with the kind of brands and etc. that he's associating with. Because end of the day, all of these, they tow a narrative, and this narrative toes a line of politics which have real life implications on lives of people.
Okay.
So I think extremely unfair to give clean chit. Of course, we as a society, we are collectively responsible. The BCCI also needs to proactively step in and ban matches with Pakistan. I do support that. I do support that as well.
Okay,
But
that's why I want to bring in Akhil Swami. Akhil Swami, instead
Can I
of
say something here?
Sure, Atul, I'll just come to you.
Let me tell you for some context. There were 4 other teams who actually bid for this player. And eventually Shah Rukh's team got him. But if any other team would have got it, would we be doing this show? No. That's my point.
No, and I agree with you that if any other team would have got it, would we be raising the same questions and then
no,
why
but you have to raise,
why
because we are
also
addressing
only
on other
question,
stuff. Because,
yes,
I think
you have other owners, Jay Mehta and Juhi Chawla also.
In comparison, there were like 23 hate crimes in USA against Indians in last year. So what do we do?
That's a topic we will be touching upon. That's a topic we will be touching upon right now in just a bit.
Akhil Swami, I was asked to go to Bangladesh for this Premier League. BPL is happening now. And I chose not to go because, and I didn't know it is going to just, go down to this level, because we never thought. But if this is happening, then we have to actually keep a balance and wait for the government and toe the line what the government is doing, and then actually escalate and not just go after the low-hanging fruit.
Akhil Swami, I think the logic is very simple over here. Who placed the players in that IPL auction pool? Who is to be questioned over here? Is it just Shah Rukh Khan? Why not the BCCI? Why isn't Jai Shah answerable over here? Shouldn't there be a policy in place over here if we do have issues with Bangladeshi players playing against India or being part of the IPL? Given that we already have a policy very much in place when it comes to Pakistani players, where we have categorically made it clear that multilateral events we can play, but as far as bilateral events between India and Pakistan, none of that action will be happening. So Akhil Swami, if I could quickly bring you in.
See, if you stop playing cricket and don't allow Bangladesh and Pakistan cricketers to join any team of IPL here, why don't you stop trade with China? Because your imports from China have increased 10 times, and so much import is taking place from China, and China was on the side of Pakistan when the Operation Sindoor was on. So the basic point is that you stop everything from all over the world, because the whole world is against you right now. The Zohran Mamdani, the New York mayor, is talking about Umar Khalid, and this is only Muslim bashing. Why don't you talk of Juhi Chawla? Why are you not taking name of Juhi Chawla? Why are you taking name of only Shah Rukh Khan? Shah Rukh Khan and Juhi Chawla are partners. It is Muslim bashing, and because of this Muslim bashing, we are getting isolated. And the New York mayor is directly talking to Umar Khalid and asking Indian government to consider and release him because he is in jail for last 5 years.
But I'm sure you'll agree, Akhil Swami, that there's an inherent bias over there as well. As Atul Vasan was right now highlighting that there have been a host of killings, targeted killings, especially against Indian Americans over there in 2025 alone. I have the names of all of them in 2025 alone, 4 of them. Why hasn't Mamdani raised his voice? He also has an Indian mother.
There have been many.
He has an Indian mother, a Hindu mother. He's not raised any of those killings.
So there have been many instances in India also against Christians and Muslims.
Atrocities
so
in
what
India.
if other people in the world take a stand against us? Just think of that.
Yes.
Akanksha, I think it's absolutely diabolical for Akhil Swami to say that these targeted killings have happened only post 2014. I'd like to remind him of the infamous Dotbusters gang in, New Jersey in the late 1990s, who would, hack heads of Indians with a dot, a bindi on their forehead. So, this targeted killing has gone unabated for a very long time, and
We
a
still
US
got,
lawmaker has
But
defense
declared
material
Rashmi,
this
from
why
US.
are we also
interference with
digressing from
due
the mood?
judicial process in India? He has no business doing that, and
Why
his
don't you
outreach is
stop trade with
extremely
America
selective.
also then?
Yes,
Stop trade
exactly.
from
I agree
America
with
No,
you.
also.
but by
Stop
that
trade from
logic,
America also.
Akhil Swami, what gives America the right to intervene on Indian incarcerations? That's a direct insult to our own democratic
It's a direct
institutions.
interference. It's
So,
not an
Rashmi
insult.
Samant, let's call a spade today. And the fact that the BCCI is supposed to be answerable over here, the sports ministry ought to answer over here. Why should only Shah Rukh Khan be targeted? Rashmi.
That's
Juhi
right.
Chawla, why
Well,
not Juhi
Akanksha, if I may answer this, since
Why
it's a
not
question
Juhi Chawla?
directed to me.
Let's have, gentlemen, please give Rashmi the time to speak when she's
It's a
answering
question
the
directed
question.
at me.
Yes.
Let me answer this. Well, I think this, a lead up to accusations. People just don't accuse somebody because of their identity. It is based on their past actions. It is based on the stance that they've taken on multiple issues in the past through their work and through their activism. Shah Rukh is one actor who came out in support of Pakistani players and said that politics and cricket should be kept separate post Mumbai blast attacks. He was one person who did not support the ban on Pakistani cricket players. So he has consistently toed a line which makes people question the kind of stance that he takes. The underlying narrative in most films that he has acted in show ISI in sympathetic light. That is why the question today is being asked to Shah Rukh Khan. If any other company or conglomerate would have bid for, this Bangladeshi player in the
Okay.
IPL, people would have dug up past precedents on their stance when it
So
came
are
to
you
Pakistan
saying that
and
he is being
Bangladesh.
targeted because of a certain image that he's built over the years, and there's a certain typecasting which is now being associated with the
Why
actor?
Mr. Modi went
Right.
to Pakistan
Okay,
to eat
okay, let's
biryani?
listen into what
Why
Akhil Swami
Mr.
has to
Modi
say.
went
Akhil
to
Swami,
Pakistan
let's
to
give
eat
Akhil
biryani?
Swami a minute. Akhil Swami.
Akansha,
Why
it's
Mr.
not
Modi went to
typecasting. It's
Pakistan
exactly what he
uninvited
said.
to eat biryani? Why Mr.
See,
Jaishankar is going to Bangladesh and shaking hands with Pakistan
Mr.
and
Akhil
Bangladeshi
Swami,
ambassador?
please do not compare two separate issues which are not related, because then you're just shifting the goalpost and trying to compare apples to oranges.
Why
Let's not
Mr.
do
Atal
that
Bihari
mistake.
Vajpayee to
No,
Lahore
but
on a
we
bus
cannot
yatra?
deny the fact that the External Affairs Minister was very much in Bangladesh, delivering a handwritten or a letter penned by Prime Minister himself for Tariq Rahman, because India
should
still
not have
believes in
shook
quiet
hands with them.
diplomacy. So,
He
Atul,
should not have shook hands with them.
no,
You-
why shouldn't
you
he shake
expect
hands?
Cricketers not
We
to
have
shake
to
hands.
ensure that
And
democracy
ambassador will-
prevails in India's neighbor, and Bangladesh is very much part of our neighborhood policy, sir.
So why don't you allow their cricketers to play then?
Right.
If
I'm
you are-
going to pose
it
that
is
question to
diplomacy.
Atul Vasan. Atul Vasan, do you think it is fair to compare India's policy, cricketing policy towards Pakistan, the same, should that in fact be implemented in Bangladesh, a country which is not really sponsoring terrorism when compared to, say, Pakistan? Pakistan, we have enough evidence to back the claims that they have sponsored terrorism. They are continuing to do so. There's infiltration, which is an issue. Yes, when it comes to Bangladesh, there's a targeting of minorities, but India is letting quiet diplomacy do its own talking. Atul Vasan.
Exactly. I think, yeah, it's very premature to actually equate Pakistan with Bangladesh at this point. And I think even bringing Pakistan, because we've got a history and which is going on and on. I think Bangladesh, I'm shocked actually, because, we were the ones who actually gave them this Bangladesh name before it was East Pakistan. So I don't know. And I think government is actually handling it. This is just like a transition, because they are going through a rough patch. And I know many friends who have got huge factories in Bangladesh. And in fact, 10,000 people of Bangladeshis live around my house in Delhi. So I think we can start from various places and not just target Shah Rukh Khan. And Shah Rukh Khan, I know Shah Rukh personally. He is a big nationalist, and I think it's very wrong to target him, because first of all, for his religion, I think, and he's not the owner, sole owner of KKR, and he was not the one who chose Mustafizur. There were 4 other people who bid for him, and he got him. And I give him time. I think there's still time, because if things go like this, BCCI will also look at it, government will also escalate, and I think then everything will fall into place.
Quick closing thoughts to Akhil Swami before I go across to Rashmi as well. Rashmi. Actually, Akhil, yes.
See, the basic point is that you are making all countries your enemies. But diplomatic relations with Bangladesh is fine. Shaking hands is fine. But the Bangladesh cricketer will not be allowed to play. What type of logic is it?
Rashmi Sawant, would you like to weigh in? See, the BCCI officials have said that we have no open directive coming in from the government, so we cannot stop any of the Bangladeshi players from coming to the auction. Then again, it comes back to why only Shah Rukh Khan?
Well, Akanksha, I think although there's nothing stopping them from coming to the action, it's the choice of Indians to pay them, to nurture them, and to give them popularity, which is inadvertently ending up in minority killing in Bangladesh. If any other country would have, if any other, see, the kind of ban that is on Israel, the kind of ban that is on Israel,
Bangladesh is an enemy country.
The kind of ban that is on Israel regarding atrocities in Palestine, the same people will not raise their voices for minorities in Bangladesh and Pakistan, because this is the selective outrage for ideology and not for humanity. So keeping that in mind, I feel that this situation of minorities in Bangladesh is as deplorable as it is in Pakistan.
Absolutely.
And if people stand
India is letting diplomacy also do the talking.
They should stop
Bangladesh an enemy country?
They should
Let
stop
her say.
sponsoring
Let
people.
her say here.
They should stop.
All right.
Bangladesh
Let's hope peace and democracy will eventually prevail after February elections that take place in Bangladesh, and India and Bangladesh will be able to revive the old friendship. But as far as bilateral cricket is concerned, it's a government policy, and much of it should be left to the government rather than just target one man or a superstar in the country who in fact is just a co-owner. Many thanks to you for joining in on Brass Tacks with that discussion. Let me now quickly shift focus over to in fact the United States, as New York City's newly elected mayor Zohran Mamdani has now faced criticism in India over his handwritten note to activist Umar Khalid. Remember, Khalid has been in jail for over 5 years in the 2020 Delhi riots case. Riots that killed 53 people back then. Khalid, of course, is charged under UAPA in cases linked to rioting and violence. Now, Mamdani's letter to Khalid has been shared by his partner on X. It mentions bitterness and the importance of not letting it consume the entire person. Perhaps Mamdani was also referring to his own struggles with the US President Donald Trump. Interestingly, it arrives after Khalid's father, Syed Qasim Rasool Ilyas, met Mamdani in the US last month itself. But that's not all. A group of American lawmakers have also written to India's ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Vinay Quatra. They demand a bail for Khalid and a fair, timely trial in accordance with international law. Now, the letter by the US lawmakers also states that as the world's largest democracies, both India and the United States have an interest in protecting and upholding freedom, the rule of law, human rights, and pluralism. Ironically, both Mamdani and the 8 US lawmakers have conveniently turned a blind eye to human rights violations on their own soil. Whether it's the case of African-American George Floyd, who was killed in police custody, the attacks on temples or minorities in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, neither Mamdani nor the US lawmakers have uttered a word against such hate crimes. Don't forget, the Indian Americans who've been killed in the US, 4 of them alone, we can quote, in 2025 alone. The United States, which has a long history of human rights violations and democratic shortcomings, what's even more hypocritical is that the US itself is involved in numerous military interventions in countries like Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and Syria, much of it leading to significant civilian casualties and destabilization. Talk about human rights violations and democratic shortcomings. The US imprisoned journalists like Julian Assange for long periods simply for exposing truths, demonstrating a blatant disregard for press freedom. So what right does the United States have to intervene on the incarceration of Umar Khalid? This when the matter is already under consideration before India's Supreme Court. Is this not disregard for India's democratic institutions, that too by a key strategic ally, the United States?
भारत जो पूरी दुनिया में ह्यूमन राइट्स का चैंपियन होता था, आज अमेरिकी सीनेटर्स और न्यूयॉर्क के मेयर को भारत को आईना दिखाना पड़ रहा है, भारत को के बारे में लिखना पड़ रहा है कि आपके यहाँ ह्यूमन राइट्स वायलेशन हो रहे हैं.
Whether the Mamdani or someone else, they should be aware that Indian judicial system is robust and is known worldwide for its judicial process. And he should also be aware that all that happened when Donald Trump, then the president of America, was on visit to India. Judiciary is already has taken cognizance of that, and no one should raise question on our judiciary.
All right, let me introduce my esteemed guests today. I'm joined in by Professor Andrew A. Latham, who's an international relation expert. Also joined in by Mr. Vikram Singh, who's a former IPS officer. Akhil Swami, a political analyst, continues to stay with us. I'm being told Mr. Tushar Gupta, who's a renowned journalist, will also be joining in just a bit. But Andrew, if I could come to you first, just to quote what the US lawmakers have verbatim said, that their concern is regarding the prolonged pre-trial detention of individuals charged in connection with the February 2020 violence in Delhi. That includes Khalid. So what's also concerning is that they're not just referring to Umar Khalid, they are the others also. What gives the US lawmakers the right to in fact talk about this pre-trial detention, which is very much a matter under the Supreme Court's attention right now?
It's a very good question. Legally, of course, they have no standing whatsoever, and diplomatically, they would be well advised to not interfere in the internal affairs of another country. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world that in which politics, at least for these lawmakers, reigns supreme, and they are signaling to their constituencies, their base, as it were, making all kinds of claims that are not legal, they're moral. This, for them, is a morality play, intersecting with a partisan political play. So the short answer to the question is no legal standing whatsoever. Diplomatically, given the importance of India to the United States and the Indo-Pacific and recent turbulence in the relationship, they'd be well advised, if they were acting on behalf of the United States, to be quiet. But they're not acting on behalf of the United States. They're acting on behalf of their own political fortunes.
Quickly bringing in Vikram Singh also on that note. I can see Tushar Gupta is also joined in. Mr. Singh, remember the Delhi police has claimed that there was a larger play over here. The entire riot was meant to in fact bring in a regime change. There was rioting. They also said that there were external forces at play. Those who organized these riots were also against the CAA. Can you take us through how grave were these riots that took place? Remember, the fact of the matter remains 53 lives were lost.
Very much. Good evening, esteemed panelists and Akanksha ji. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the anti-CAA riots saw the input of 120 crores of rupees. And to the first posture, I would say that let him cast the first stone who has not sinned before. The Delhi riots, you may recall, also had those who had paid their homes into a personal armories. They had petrol bombs, Molotov cocktails, and also a mixture of sand and also red chili powder to throw on the police. The manner in which they attacked the Delhi police, women and policemen, well, it was such a shame and a scandal. And I would compliment the Delhi police for being so tolerant and did not use any disproportionate force at all. Now to your second question, that the Delhi riots were an insidious planning. There was funding, flash mobs, and Umar Khalid was very well up to the mark. I will also tell you, because we go into the family pedigree also. Umar Khalid's father has been a known activist of the Student Islamic Movement of India, and after having served the CME for a long time, he became an Ansar. And Ansar would be a veteran of the CME. Therefore, it seems to be that he seems to be a die-hard person who would like, perhaps, I would say, do into Ghazwa Hind, create an Islamic state in 2047 and make India an Islamic country. The riot in itself would go to show the planning, the execution, and also to target the police and also those. And a policeman was murdered by the corporator, Tahir Hussain, who was stabbed into death and his body was found in the gutter. Therefore, the riots were planned, they were timing, and also the manner and the insidious manner in which they had the anti-CAA agitations also. I would blame Umar Khalid singly. They were agitations, and the matter is in the cognizance of the Honorable Supreme Court. And for the USA, I would say you are far too young. Go back to 68, the My Lai massacre, in which the 20th Infantry Battalion murdered 500 people in cold blood, mutilated bodies, and committed gang rape. And then you have what is known as the shame GTMU, Guantanamo Bay detention centers, which has 720 detainees, and no trial and nothing, because it has very systematically planned to be on the side of Cuba. Therefore, the Americans' laws do not operate there, and they have what is known as enhanced interrogation techniques. So America has in fact structured and institutionalized third degree and brutality, and name it enhanced interrogation techniques. Well, it is certainly not for US to tutor us on human rights, because they have a black record, and I would take them back to Black Lives Matter and also the other agitations which you rightly mentioned. Therefore, I would say that they would be well advised to set their own house in order before they lecture us.
Akhil Swami, quickly want to bring you in on the political chatter surrounding the concerns that have been raised by US lawmakers. Today, BJP's Pradeep Bhandari, in fact, has raised how Rahul Gandhi had that meeting with Jan Schakowsky. And soon after that meeting today, she also happens to be one of the lawmakers who have raised the issue of Umar Khalid and written to the Indian government. They shockingly, this is what they have to say, that Khalid has been detained without bail for 5 years for charges under the UAPA, which independent human rights experts have warned may contravene international standards of equality. So they are more concerned about what human rights experts are saying about contradicting international standards of equality, but utter disregard for what the Supreme Court's own observations, even the High Court's own observations have been so far.
See, if you have the all respect for the Supreme Court and High Court of India, then you should also have respect for the Bangladeshi courts, which have declared Sheikh Hasina as a culprit and accused
Mr.
and
Swami,
a criminal.
We are talking about Omar Khalid. When I was discussing Bangladesh, you started discussing Mamdani. Now when I am discussing Omar Khalid, you are discussing Sheikh Hasina. Why is there this digression?
Om Prakash Dhakad is given bail in 24 hours. Braj Bhushan Sharan Singh accused of POSCO Act, where the arrest
My
should have been
question is
made
very
immediately.
basic. What gives the
Omar
US
Khalid
lawmakers
should get bail.
or Mr. Mamdani
whatever
to turn
Mamdani
a
is saying
blind
is
eye
right.
to all
Omar
of
Khalid
those
should get bail.
human rights
Omar
violations
Khalid should
taking
get
place
bail.
against
It is
Indian Americans on
injustice
their
to
own
Omar
soil?
Khalid. The basic point is that a summon is issued by the government, the courts of America, and the summons are not served in India for last 1 year. Is it fair? So Omar Khalid, just because he is a Muslim, would you punish him? So the basic point is Om Prakash Dhakal gets bail in 24 hours. Braj Bhushan Sharan Singh is not arrested. Vijay, the singer gets bail by the High Court, and the Supreme Court has to intervene.
Fair enough.
And Omar Khalid doesn't get a
the
hearing
courts
for 5
in
years.
your country. Tushar Gupta, I think you should weigh in on that. Why do we need US lawmakers or say a newly elected New York mayor who has his own, concerns of cost of living crisis, racism, all of them is currently not being addressed, but there's a letter being penned for Omar Khalid, a matter which is currently sub judice. Tushar Gupta.
Good evening, Akanksha. You know, running a Bollywood-style campaign, Zohran Mamdani is actually confusing himself for a Bollywood hero. He is the New York mayor, and the New York mayor has the executive oversight of the New York Police Department. Now, my simple question, or any rational man or woman would ask this question to Mamdani, would he be okay with people blocking the streets of New York? Would he be okay with the economics of New York being interfered by hooligans and arsonists? Would he be okay if the function of the New York Police Department is put under threat by a group of people who want to create deadlocks, who want to create chakka jumps within the city in the name of freedom of speech and expression? I'm sure he won't agree to it. But because he's sitting in the US, he believes it's his moral responsibility to lecture what happens in the other parts of the world. I understand where he derives this, mentality from. It's coming from the White House. One can understand that. But this has to do with an improper reading of the affairs in India. Umar Khalid is in jail not because he's a Muslim, not because he's a college-going student, not because he exercised his freedom of speech and expression. He's in jail because the Delhi police has clearly stated that he was a part of a larger conspiracy to create a deadlock within the city of Delhi, to get the law and order completely collapsed, to have a situation where everything would have gone out of control. He was going for chaos. Now, if Mamdani endorses that kind of a model for New York, by all means, he can think about Umar Khalid. But is this about just Umar Khalid? Is this a religious angle to it? Is this a global lobby supporting Umar Khalid? All these questions must be asked. But at the end of the day, I only want to leave Mamdani and his supporters with one question. If what was being done in December 2019 in Delhi is attempted in New York today, you'll see what happens there in not even in 24 hours, in the next 30 minutes. That is the difference between US and India.
Andrew Latham, if I could bring you in on that aspect of Mamdani and his selective sort of outrage over here, because we've seen that he's also born out of an Indian mother. I can tell you in March 2025 last year, there was a father-daughter duo which was killed. They were shot dead at a departmental store in Virginia. 56-year-old father named Pradeep Patel, 24-year-old daughter Urmi. In September last year, 50-year-old Indian man named Chandramouli Nagamalaya was brutally beheaded in front of his own wife. That very month, a 26-year-old man, Kapil, from India's Haryana, was shot dead in California. In October, 28-year-old student from Hyderabad was shot dead in Texas. Not even a word has come from the newly elected mayor of New York.
No, that's absolutely right. This is very much he's written and is acting in a morality play. He has a script, which is a script that poor Muslims in America are so hard done by, and around the world by extension. That's part of his electoral base. That's part of his appeal to the progressive side of the Democratic Party in the United States. He has taken the opportunity to play the role, as was pointed out a little bit earlier, of hero in this particular drama, even though he clearly doesn't understand what's going on in India. It's difficult enough to govern a complex city like New York City. That should be a full-time job, and he should be devoting 100% of his time, energy, and everything else towards being the best mayor he can possibly be, not grandstanding on a global stage and commenting about the internal affairs of another country, about which he knows little and I suspect cares less. But that's where we are in the United States. It's true.
I think grandstanding is in fact the right word. Vikram Singh, would you in fact agree with what Andrew is also highlighting? Because over here we've seen what Mamdani has done. He's in fact been drawing comparisons with how he stood up against a bully like the US President Donald Trump. And so he's also sort of referred to that mildly in his letter which he spent for Umar Khalid. But talk about the anti-India forces at play over here. There's a lot of politicization that's taking place and selective sort of vocal outrage.
Words of profound wisdom from Professor Andrews, and I compliment him for that. And yes, diplomacy is not my strength, but I would say belonging to a particular community does not give any immunity to commit crime and be absolved about that. Or the state should soft pedal because a person belongs to a particular community. That cannot happen. Again, to your comparison between what Mamdani is doing vis-a-vis Trump and what he's dictating, and I feel I'm oblivious to Indian laws and conditions, comparison should be between comparables. He is living in an Alice in Wonderland world, and therefore, as Professor Andrew has mentioned, he has an electoral base and he's nursing that. And in the process, perhaps he crosses the line, does not care two who's as to what he is doing and whether it is proper, improper, discreet or indiscreet. To the contrary, I feel that voting and writing a handwritten note for a person who's accused of the most horrific crime within the ambit of law, the Supreme Court is privy to the fact, and yet he chooses to be on the other side of law. Well, I wish him well. What more can I say?
Akhil Swami, weigh in on the word that's coming from the BJP. In fact, spokesperson Pradeep Bhandari saying that it was only after Janis Chakravarty's meeting with Rahul Gandhi we've seen a lot of anti-India rhetoric being drummed up within these US lawmakers. That also includes, say, the likes of Ilhan Omar. And today, in fact, Chakravarty is one of them who've penned a letter to the Indian government asking for Omar to be released.
Umar Khalid is a accused or is a declared culprit and the criminal by the courts. See, 5 years, 5 years. Why don't you hear the case? Why the charge sheet is not filed? Why don't you discuss and the court decide that he's a criminal and hang him? No problems. But you are hanging, putting this case for 5 years. You are not giving a trial, fair trial, and you are right here. There is a media trial, and he is being declared accused, and the punishment is given to him for 5 years. 5 years. Om Prakash Dhakar gets bail in 24 hours. Mr. Brajbhushan Sharan Singh is not arrested, and Mr. Sengar, who kills 5 or 6 persons of a particular family, is granted bail by the High Court. Umar Khalid, just because, and Mamdani has a bitter experience about 2002 riots.
Okay.
So he is referring to that riots because that is in his back of his mind.
So, Tushar Gupta, many have in fact raised this question time and again from the other side of the political spectrum, whether it is Umar Khalid, Gulfisha Fatima or even Sharjeel Imam, that they have been jailed in the Delhi riots conspiracy case since 2020 and on fabricated charges. Why shouldn't they be given the right to bail?
Were the Delhi riots a fiction? Fiction? The people who died in Delhi riots, was that fiction? When people call these charges fabricated, I don't understand. Do they think these are characters from the Harry Potter world we've just imported and put them inside prison? Do they think this is a video game going on? Akhil Swami very irresponsibly says these are fabricated charges. The charge sheet, one should go through the charge sheet. What was going on in West Delhi, on the border of Ghaziabad in Delhi?
I'll give you
I never said that.
Akhil Swami, I'll give you time to come up with the counter. Let Tushar finish.
No. If Mamdani thinks that these charges are fabricated, I just want to ask him and his supporters, do they also think 9/11 was fiction? Do they think that the planes that flew into the World Trade Towers were fiction? It's very easy to dismiss that whatever happened in Delhi was somehow fabricated, the protests were fabricated. I remember you were covering Shaheen Bagh, Akanksha, and we used to listen to death calls against the Prime Minister and Home Minister back then. Was that fiction? Everything was captured on television. Every single piece of literature was circulated on social media, and it was only because of the pandemic that they stopped. But they had grander plans, one of which was the Delhi riots, and they accomplished it. Is that all fiction? Are we going to pretend that none of it happened? If all of it indeed happened, as was captured on television, as the records show, how are the charges fabricated? And if the charges are indeed fabricated, are they saying the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary and the media, the four pillars of democracy, are working against the poor Umar Khalid? What nonsense!
Fair enough. Akhil Swami, there's one right to peacefully protest, but we all know that these were inorganic protests meant to foment violence, meant to manufacture a regime change. What explains the death of these 53 people who died? Also, not to forget, the trial court, the High Court, both have rejected their bail pleas.
See, the basic point is that I never said that the cases are fabricated. But why don't you start the trial, give him a trial, fair trial, try and decide the case within 6 months, hang him if he is culprit, and he did all that, and free him if he has not. So the basic point is that you are releasing the killers because they belong to a particular community, and a particular community, the person, all the accused, if they belong to a particular society or a particular religion, then fair trial, and every religion should be dealt fairly. And we have all faith on the Supreme Court of India and the High Courts of India. Let them try. If he is culprit, if he has done something wrong, he should be punished. But if he is not, he should be released on bail. 5 years time has been taken by the various courts, and the bail is not granted to him. That is the basic question.
Mr. Singh, how would you weigh in on the point that Akhil Swami has just now raised? Because remember, there were larger forces at play over here. The ones who were looking towards change of regime were also political in nature. The ones who were very much protesting the CAA. And as Akhil Swami is saying that, are we looking at just targeting of a particular community? How do you respond to that?
Absolutely not. Mr. Akhil Swami is a very learned panelist, and I respect him for that. But the fact of the matter is that I would say there is something known as preventive detention. when a case like riot is investigated, there are voluminous things. And I'm given to understand that then Police Commissioner S.N. Srivastava, in fact, in his press conference, there are thousands of pages pertaining to the charge sheet. In fact, more than 3 PhD theses rolled into one. Therefore, to compile that, to prepare the charge sheet, to put up before the court, and there's a backlog. How could you feel that we should allow anybody, merely because it belongs to a particular committee, to jump the queue? Anybody and anybody, unless he is put into a fast track court, which is a decision that has to be taken by the government, not by the police commissioner, not by society, or by the court itself. And there have been cases where people belonging to a particular country, and I take the strongest exception to that, that the Supreme Court was opened midnight for them so that they could get a faster hearing. They have the best legal brains. They fly to USA and they fly to USA and have the support of no other than Mayor Mamdani. Well, what more do you think that with the deep pockets they could have indeed have the Supreme Court open? But that wasn't happened.
I just want
National security is
I want to give quick closing thoughts to Andrew Latham. Andrew Latham, whether Mamdani's own letter or the letter that is being penned by the US lawmakers, do you think that this has again unmasked US hypocrisy? We are not just talking about targeted killings of Indian Americans. You look at the Black Lives Matter movement, which began because there was a killing of George Floyd. It was a clear-cut case of racism. You're looking at the way regime changes are being manufactured by the United States, the kind of instability the world over we are witnessing. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not sure I would characterize all of those things the way you just did, but I would agree very, very broadly that this House needs to be put in order, and we elect people at the municipal level, at the state level, at the national level, to put our House in order. Once upon a time, American lawmakers thought, in the aftermath of the Cold War, that they ran the world. Those days are over. They were never there in the first place, but they're certainly over now. And time, energy, and money ought to be devoted to getting the American House in order and not pontificating about what's going on in other people's houses. I'm fairly knowledgeable about Indian politics, and I wouldn't presume to weigh in on the particulars of this case.
All right.
And nor should the mayor of New York City.
Thank you so much for, in fact, coming up with that perfect conclusion. I just want to, in fact, conclude with Mr. Raju's remarks that when intellectuals become terrorists, they can prove to be more dangerous than the ones on the ground. Many thanks to you, gentlemen, for joining in. And that's all I have for you in Brass Tacks. Up next is more on Iran. Over to Iran, a wave of intense civil unrest has gripped Iran, marking the most significant challenge to the Islamic Republic since 2022. What began on December 28, 2025 as a protest by Tehran Bazaar merchants over a collapsing currency has now exploded into a nationwide uprising fueled by hyperinflation and political fury. As the protests entered their fifth day, the situation has turned lethal. Security forces have reportedly used live ammunition against demonstrators, leading to at least 7 confirmed deaths. Amid the turmoil, US President Donald Trump has issued a strong warning saying that if Iran kills peaceful protesters, US will come to their rescue. Trump, in a post on Truth Social, said, and let me quote, "We are locked and loaded and ready to go." What will this mean for the overall polity of Middle East? Let's try and get in perspective. And for that, I'm joined in by Catherine Perez-Shakhtam, who's a former Mossad spy. She infiltrated the Iranian regime and is now an expert on Middle East politics. Thank you so much, Catherine, for joining in. As an Israeli Mossad spy who infiltrated Iran, orchestrated one of the most devastating blows to the Khomeini regime, one that we witnessed last year. How did you operate and what helped you to evade suspicion?
Okay, so first of all, those are allegations that have been, talked about and discussed and dissected. I can't get into details. What I would say is that, look, the regime invited me in. So the best way I could describe it is when you want to catch a fish, you set a net and you wait for the fish to come. So that's exactly what happened. I created an environment and a setup that I knew would allow for them to come and want to speak to me. Now, they did because I got lucky, I think. In all honesty, I'm not that special. What I did is that I made sure to create a need in that they needed to have an opening into Yemen. I happen to know the family of the former president at the time, as well as some of the Houthis. And so for the regime, it was very interesting because they were trying back then It was, prior to 2017. It was on the back of the Arab Spring. They were trying to get a footing into Yemen and to try to understand the psychology of the Houthis. Now, the Houthis are Arabs that are very different from Hezbollah and Hamas and all the rest of them in the rest of the Middle East, with a very different mentality. And so they needed someone to translate for them how to best create a relationship and consolidate their position. Now, I didn't help do that, but what I did do is made sure that they would need me so that I would get further up into the whole network that they had and to try to understand their reach. So that's how I operated. Now, in terms of not arousing suspicion, being French helped tremendously. My government, or at least the French government, made sure that Khomeini was able to come back and take over from the late Shah. So I think that they saw in France a friend, an ally, and they didn't feel that I posed a threat. I'm also a woman. They're not exactly huge fans of women, and they tend to think that women are best served in the kitchen. And so when they saw me, they thought that, it's here's a woman, she's a Westerner, she fell for our lies, she's going to be very easy to manipulate. And so I let them believe that they could. And as it turned out, it was the other way around.
Well, that's like a plot out of a spy thriller of sorts. But Catherine, the ongoing protests in Iran are the biggest that the country has seen since 2022, when the death of Mahsa Amini took place in police custody. The problem is that the Islamic regime has treated all dissent as a threat to its survival, not as a challenge that demands a political and policy response. Do you think the government will course correct this time around or resort to yet another pan-Iran crackdown?
So, first of all, let me tell you about the regime. The regime doesn't correct anything. The regime is exactly what you see. It's a murderous regime. It's Islamofascism. They're not interested in talking, reforming, or doing anything. Those are the lies that unfortunately the West has fallen for. Those people, and I mean this, are not to be trifled with, in the sense that you can't make a deal with them. You can't try to contain them. People tend to believe that the regime is contained within the borders of Iran. It is not. It's geared towards export. And this is something that we need to understand. They will eventually, and they have done so through their proxies, try to gangrene the rest of the world and grab hold of our societies. And they do this by finding a breach into society and get in. And it's like a cancer. They pervert people, they hold people, they blackmail people. It's a whole setup that is extremely dangerous. So what you see in the streets right now, the fact that they're killing people, imprisoning people, torturing people, all manners of disgusting crimes against humanity, if you ask me, to believe that they will at some point stop or even contemplate dialogue is a fallacy. They're lying to you and people are falling for it, because it is a lot easier to believe a lie that would require you to sit on your hands and do nothing than to actually face the truth, which is we have to fight. We have to fight them and we have to win. So that means that you're going to have to exert enormous efforts in order to cut the tree down, because we have allowed for that tree to develop roots that go very, very far indeed.
Catherine, the US president has threatened Iran that if they shoot and kill peaceful protesters, US will come to their rescue. Is a US and Israeli intervention imminent? And is a full-blown military conflict with Iran the solution to lasting peace?
Look, I don't know. Look, I think that Israel has done a great deal. If you recall the 12 Days War, I think that was a military feat. I don't think that any country ever in history has managed to do what Israel has done. I think that Israel has done enough in terms of fighting for the rest of the world. And, there's something that I find quite hypocritical. And I'm not talking about you at all. I'm talking about the rest of the world, where the world continues to accuse Israel of everything, including global warming. At the same time, the rest of the world, and by that I mean Western liberal democracies, hide behind Israel, hoping and wishing for Israel to do the dirty job and for them to take the credit and to go back to issuing statements of condemnation against Israel. So there's a point in time where people will have to make a choice. Are you with us or against us? So far, I feel like they are very much against Israel. If they were indeed for the defense of democracy, they should back Israel with everything they have. I'm still waiting. Now, in terms of what America will do, I don't know Donald Trump, what I do know about him is that usually he says, he does what he says. And so I have every faith that he will do something. Now, he should do it now because they have already shot people dead. They are kidnapping young girls from university and throwing them in Evin prison. I don't need to tell you what happens there. This regime will not stop. Iranians have made very clear that they don't want to stop either. They want to see the return of the Shah. They want to have a country that resembles them. And they want to be free again. They want to be able to breathe like you and I and decide what they want to do with their lives. Right now, the regime is preventing that. So I think that if America is genuine about building democracies and helping people fight Islamofascism, and getting rid of the Muslim Brotherhood, getting rid of the RSGC, they need to go and do it now. If Israel wants to help, Israel will have all the credits because I think Israel has been wonderful so far and will continue to be. But Israel cannot and should not do it alone. I think it needs to be a regional effort. I think that our friends in the Middle East need to wake up and understand that their crowns could fall too. And Qatar needs to be called out because Qatar is funding all those lovely people that we call terrorists. And so Qatar, we need to answer to what it is that it's doing. And, India is also facing a great threat because you have the Deobandi movement. All those people have been funded and created by the regime in Tehran. So if Donald Trump is serious about making friends and helping India and helping the rest of the world, making sure that we have energy security, making sure that the tech industry continues to boom and we have all a wonderful future, let's put Israel back in the map, please. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for calling a spade a spade. Catherine Perez Shaktam.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Good evening. You're watching The Right Stand here on CNN News 18 with me, Poonam Burde. Indore, India's cleanest city, is facing a grim tragedy. What began on Christmas Day with reports of foul-smelling tap water has now claimed at least 15 lives, including the youngest victim, a 5-month-old infant. More than 150 residents still remain in hospital, some of them fighting for their survival. Investigations have revealed that a leaking pipeline beneath the public toilet allowed sewage to seep directly into the drinking water supply. Documents accessed by CNN News 18 exposed the systemic failures that led to this tragedy. This was a tragedy that was completely man-made and completely avoidable. A proposed Narmada pipeline for Bhagirathpura, which is the area where this tragedy took place, in 2022 has been delayed for years. We're in 2026 as we speak. Tenders were issued only in mid-2025. Construction began just last month, nearly 3 years late. Worse still, these sewer lines were laid above drinking water pipelines, a blatant violation of safety rules, and it went unchecked for 3 long years. Civic authorities have defended this in court. They've gone on to say that everything is under control and that action has been taken and some officials have already been sacked or have been suspended. They said that the state administration and medical authorities have been continuously monitoring the situation on a minute-by-minute basis, as if that wasn't the most basic thing that they could have done. And while ministers in government meetings are sipping bottled waters, mineral water, ordinary citizens have paid with their lives drinking that sewage water. A video from a government officials meeting is now irking the public, not just in Madhya Pradesh or Indore, but across the country, and rightly so. Because you see the chief minister, several other ministers, officials sitting around a table discussing what next to be done. All of them have a bottled water in front of them, while everyone else in this area of Bhagirathpura have been drinking sewage water for the last 2 weeks. 150 people are still fighting for their life, even as the state government comes out with lip service to say, oh, that look, we apologize for what happened. Look, we've taken action against certain individuals. But what about the delay? What about the fact that they didn't do their jobs right in the first place, which is why we had to lose 15 lives today?
इस वक्त हम भागीरथपुरा में मौजूद हैं। ये तस्वीर दिखा रहे हैं और ये वही गली है जहां पर सबसे ज्यादा लोग प्रभावित हुए। सीमा प्रजापत, ये उनका मकान है और उनकी उल्टी दस्त की वजह से जान चल गई। अस्पताल ले जा रहे थे परिवार के लोग और बीच रास्ते में शायद उनकी मौत हो गई। कब से उन्हें ये परेशानी हुई थी?
एक ही दिन। हाँ, एक ही दिन।
2-3 घंटे ही हुए सर।
हाँ जी।
सुबह तबीयत खराब हुई 4-5 बजे और 9 बजे तो खत्म हो गई वो। हमको संभलने का ही मौका नहीं मिला।
क्या दिक्कत थी उन्हें?
उल्टी दस्त हुए।
उल्टी दस्त।
हाँ,
अच्छा, इस गली की बात की जाए तो कितने लोगों को ये शिकायत होगी?
गली में अभी ये मान लो कि 10-12 लोग बीमार है गली में। मेरी खुद की लड़की की तबीयत खराब हो रही है, ये बैठी सामने, इसको उल्टी दस्त हो रहे, इसका इलाज चल रहा है।
और शायद कोई और महिला जिन्हें
एक महिला है जिनको कल वहाँ एडमिट करा, वो वहाँ उनका घर है। ये एक लड़के को अभी लेके गए हॉस्पिटल।
जी, पानी कब से गंदा आ रहा था? आप लोग
8-15 दिन से गंदा आ रहा है, मतलब दिखने में साफ दिखेगा, लेकिन पी रहे ना तो कड़ापन आ रहा है उसमें। अब उसमें कड़ापन किस वजह से आ रही है ये सरकार जांच करे, उसमें हमको क्या पता चलेगा।
शायद वो साफ पानी देखकर ही आप लोगों ने पी लिया कि पानी तो साफ है,
तो साफ आ रहा है, पीने में कड़ा।
Viewers, look at your screens. What kind of insensitivity is this? It's the Marie Antoinette moment of the Madhya Pradesh government. While the Madhya Pradesh Sarkar funnels toxic sewage water into homes in Indore that brings death and illness, the Chief Minister and his colleagues flaunt mineral water at a press conference. You can see that, viewers. The quality of the water that Indore's residents have been getting is exemplified by that brackish color in the water in the bucket, viewers. And on the right, pristine Bisleri water. Viewers, this was all at a press conference. A press conference ironically called to express regret for the catastrophe that has hit Indore. Look at the contrast. Mineral water for them, sewage for you. These pictures tell you something. They point to a profound arrogance, a culture of insensitivity and impunity. You also see this in Delhi, viewers. Pollution is off the charts, but the ministers are sitting cozily, the Delhi government ministers, at their homes with their expensive air purifiers, while you're breathing toxic air. It's all emblematic of a we couldn't give a damn attitude. More than a dozen are dead in Indore because the Madhya Pradesh state government allowed them to die. There's no other way of saying this. The administration slept on complaints by the residents of Bhagirathpura locality when they alerted the city's mayor that the water they were drinking had turned to poison and that he needed to do something about this. But sewage pits were allowed to sit above drinking water lines. Yes, viewers, loose joints leaked filth into pipelines. Yes, the main pipeline, and we've been doing an investigation.